Hey everyone, I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Boston. Welcome to Co-Medicine. I have an amazing guest on today. I'm so excited for you to hear this podcast. Her name is Dr. Janet McMordie. She is a sports medicine physician. She also is a surgical assistant. She does mass gathering event medicine. That's just the medical side of things. Oh, she's a medical consultant for film and television. She's also an improv actor and a film and television and voice actor. She's absolutely incredible. She did a hard pivot during the pandemic, and I think it's paying off for her. I can't wait for you to hear this chat with Dr. Janet McMordie. Welcome, Dr. Janet McMordie. Thank you so much for being on Co-Medicine.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. So I always start the podcast talking about the day job in healthcare. So would you be able to tell us a little bit about your job in medicine?
Sure. So I am a sport and exercise medicine specialist. So I trained as a family doctor, hated it, and then did a fellowship in sport and exercise medicine, which is my true love. I also do something called surgical assist, where if the surgeons in mainly smaller community hospitals need an extra set of hands, they call the surgical assistant. It's either a physician, or there are nurses who are specialized as surgical assists as well too. And I love that, being in the operating room. I do a lot of orthopedics because of my background in sports medicine. I also practice something called mass gathering or event medicine, where I cover large music festivals where there are large amounts of human beings gathering in one place, whether or not they stay there overnight, camping, like big festivals. Up here in Ontario, we have something called Boots and Hearts, which is a big country music festival. I've been one of the medical directors there for about almost 10 years now. Or big music festivals that are just day to day, like Veld in Toronto, a big electronic music festival. They always have huge medical people on staff. And so I do that as well too. So that's basically my day job. I have like a sports medicine clinic, and then I'm usually on call for surgical assisting. And then the event mass gathering medicine happens a lot of time, mainly in the summer. It's a bit more sporadic. But then I guess another cool thing I get to do within my sports medicine world is I do a lot of travel with teams. Like the Canadian Olympic team, I'm actually headed to Chile for the Pan Am Games. So I'll be traveling with Team Canada for that. So that's one of the neat things that I get to do in my job in sports medicine.
Oh, I love it. It's like your day jobs. You have several day jobs. Day jobs.
Only my clinic happens during the day. The rest happens all hours of the day and night.
Just whenever. So you can't say you hated being a family doctor without me having to ask about it. What was it about being in family medicine that you didn't enjoy?
Yeah, so I guess I should clarify. I never actually practiced as a family doctor. I went straight from my family medicine residency to my sports medicine fellowship. I really, really enjoy the musculoskeletal, orthopedic, and sports medicine aspect of primary care. And there were a lot of things in primary care that I did love. I love following patients. I don't think we use the term cradle to grave anymore because it's a bit morbid, but I loved that aspect of the longitudinal care of family practice. But I didn't like the paperwork. And, I think in Canada, Ontario specifically, we are in a primary care crisis. Everyone's burning out. Like, it's the paperwork and the administrative stuff that we have to do as primary care providers, both physicians, nurse practitioners, whoever you see, is just exhausting and not why I spent my glory years in school. So there's a lot that could go into why I didn't like family medicine, but it was also the shortest route to get to sports, which is what I wanted to do.
Okay.
So I did kinesiology as my undergrad. I did a master's in kinesiology. I loved that. And so the shortest way to get me to sports medicine was 2 years of family practice plus the fellowship. So I went the shortest route I could.
That's brilliant. No, that totally makes sense. So I did what we call primary care as well for 3 years. And I don't know if I'd say I hated it, but I wanted to be a surgeon. But the one thing I liked, and we don't say cradle to grave, but the one thing I liked was like following patients and like their puppies and then they watching them grow up. That part was cool. And having regular clients and patients, that part was really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
The mass gathering event thing is really fascinating too.
Yeah.
Is it like heat exhaustion? I'm trying to think what you see when you're in those situations?
Heat exhaustion is a huge part of it. We call a lot of people HBD, which stands for has been drinking. A lot of polypharmacy, being the recreational pharmaceuticals that are out there on the streets. So a lot of substance abuse, overdoses that come in, a lot of, asthma exacerbations, because a lot of these places are big agricultural fields. They're dusty, they're dirty. You get a lot of, little cuts and scrapes and rolled ankles because people are all in flip-flops or cowboy boots. And the company that I work for is probably one of the biggest event medical companies in Canada. We can basically run an intensive care unit at these events. And so the biggest reason why we do something like this is to make sure we don't overwhelm the hospitals, the taxpayer, right? The hospitals, they need to be like, we have paramedics on site, et cetera, but the amount of people that we can treat in the medical tent on site is unbelievable. So they don't go to the hospital and then clog the drain, right? So, it's a big thing is to help take pressure off of the system when you have a large amount of human beings gathering in one spot, which is always a worry for the healthcare system. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. That is really cool. It's making me think when I was at Hillside, which is a folk festival in Guelph.
No, there was some big medical teams there. Usually you can't be seen. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because they kept talking about Narcan. They were like, have fun, but not too much fun. I was like, oh my God. Okay. Well, that's good. I'm glad that you're there to make sure that people don't get into too much trouble.
And I think the biggest thing is that they don't get into too much trouble medically because we're not the cops.
Yeah.
Right?
Fair.
I don't care what you did. That's the biggest thing with these patients. I'm like, just tell me what you took. Like, I don't care. I don't care. Yeah. I'm not going to tell the police. I just need to know so I can treat you. Right. I don't care. I'm not your mom. I'm not the cops. Just tell me. I don't care. I just want you to enjoy this festival you probably paid a ton of money to come to.
Yeah. No, that's a good distinction. You can tell me this. Is that one of the tenets of medicine is not judging your patients and caring for them, right?
Absolutely.
You're not there for that. You're there to, whatever, reverse them, support them, whatever.
I remember laughing because everyone always jokes, about how when doctors all sit around, I'm sure it's the same in your job as well, too. When we all sit around at dinner, we're terrible dinner party guests because we just have gross, disgusting stories and we just love to talk about them. And civilians always ask, what's the craziest thing you've ever seen? Which you don't really want to know the answer to that. You just want to know the coolest thing you found up somebody's behind. And again, the big thing is I'm never going to yuck your yum. You do whatever you want. I'm just here to not judge you and make you feel better and go on your merry way. The police are here. There is that aspect of it.
Yeah. No, I got talking to another physician about things that he's pulled out of orifices.
It's always that's really what people want to know. They don't want to know the craziest thing I've seen. They want to know what comes out of people's butts.
Okay, you don't have to tell us, but do you want to tell us?
I will plead the fifth on that one, even though I know we're not in the States and that doesn't
count.
Yeah, it doesn't count. People always fall on things, though.
This is what Dr. Pomachan told me, that there was a lot of falling on things.
And you would think it's kind of funny because obviously real life is funnier than what we see in the movies and the movies pull on real life. And so I remember the first time talking to a patient, they told me that. They said, I just fell on it. In my mind, am I being punked? Is this one of those movies that am I on just for laughs? No, it really happens more often than you think.
They're very funny. Humans are funny.
We really are.
That they have to craft a story.
Yeah. You're like, I don't care. I really don't care. But you're going to tell me anyways. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. In veterinary medicine, it's especially before pot was legal, it was a lot of like, there's no chance this dog got out. And we're just like, could just please tell us, like, please just tell us what happened. But we drug test now. We drug test dogs. They're pee. So people can lie to us, but we can drug test them.
That's so neat.
So you alluded to this a little bit, but maybe just, I guess you can pick one of your true profession is sports medicine. Is that true?
Yes.
Would you say that?
Yes.
So what's the biggest challenge of being a sports medicine physician?
Oh, do you mean like medically challenging or systemically within our healthcare dumpster fire? Or what would you say?
Anything in there.
I used to joke with, we used to joke, we being the global medical we, that our biggest adversary was the government. But I think my biggest adversary, especially being in sports medicine, which is a bit more kind of prestige first world medicine, is health insurance. People not having coverage for things like physiotherapy, or if the government's covered physiotherapy, the wait list is insane. I work up north of Toronto where the average age is, over 50, right? And so there's a lot of people who genuinely need physiotherapy, can't afford it. So they have to wait around for the publicly funded physiotherapy. And so that's really, really frustrating. And it's hard also, and I know a lot of your other guests have alluded to this, about not having enough time with patients and being told, no, you can't spend more time because you're just going to make less money. But, I want to spend time with patients because I'm not a physiotherapist. I'm not that smart, but I can teach them some exercises my physiotherapy colleagues have taught me if they don't have coverage. I don't have the time.
Yeah.
I feel I don't have the time. I have the pressure because my wait list gets longer and longer and longer. So I think that's the biggest struggle is, insurance coverage for a lot of the things that are seen as first world, like rehab, like physiotherapy and stuff like that. But then also the time constraints that come with, a publicly funded fee-for-service healthcare system.
All right. And now what is the thing you like the most about being a sports medicine physician?
Oh, the actual medicine itself. I love how the human body works, like levers and pulleys. I have a physics minor. It just makes sense. And I can see it. I can move it. If it hurts, I know where it hurts. I know why, because you're moving it this way. We can move it that way. It's just fascinating to see how everything interacts, for good and for bad. But the cool thing about it is if we can fix the one part that's the epicenter of what's causing you your grief, a lot of things tend to fall into place biomechanically in our bodies. And I love that. I love chatting with patients about that and giving them, I guess hope would be the right word, saying, oh, I know exactly what this is. Here's how we can work towards getting everything to work out. And if you get stronger from, say, your shoulder injury, it will probably also help here and here. And your golf game's going to get better. And that makes everyone happy too. I love how the body, the muscles, the bones, the tendons, that part of the body all work together. It's just always been fascinating to me. I love it.
Oh, I'm resisting the urge to book an appointment with you.
Yeah.
I'm moving on.
Sadly, my practice is closed to new referrals because my wait list is insane. And the guilt that comes with a long wait list was I could not handle it. So I had to close it down. Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
All right.
Mentally couldn't do it.
Find someone else to help with my levers and pulleys.
With your levers and pulleys.
I'm going to pivot now to your other jobs, I guess I would call it, because you do a lot of things. So looking at your history and your bio, it looks like kind of sometime during the pandemic, you decided to kind of move into improv comedy and acting. So can you kind of tell me about what kind of spurred you to do that? The
pandemic for so many people was a pivot time. I think there wasn't a single person in healthcare, in human, animal, any type of public-facing, forward-facing industry that wasn't just absolutely rocked to the core. Again, I'm practicing sports medicine. That is a very prestige thing to practice. So that was completely wiped out during the pandemic for good reason. And we were redeployed, as we should have been and were, to help out. And I was on the fast train to Burnoutville, as I think all of us were, just so emotionally caregiver burnout, emotionally exhausted. And the second city in Toronto, but I think Chicago and LA were doing it as well, had these online improv shows for healthcare workers because they were like, you need to laugh. Your life is terrible. I said, correct. And so I watched these shows and thought, oh my gosh, that looks like so much fun. And everything being online, I was living about 2 hours north of Toronto. Not like I could have gone in person anyway during the pandemic, but everything being online. I said, I want to take one improv class. I was a theater kid growing up. And then I think as a lot of us in healthcare, kind of tunnel vision focused my way towards a career in medicine because you have to. And successfully, I did that. And then the tunnel ended, and very harshly. And so I took an improv class online, and nobody, maybe one or two people in this 15-person online improv class were actors or comedians. They were all people like me who were kind of dying on the inside, wanting to do something. I met lawyers, accountants, other doctors, nurses, real estate agents, people who just wanted to do something in their spare time, whether it be as a hobby, as a stress relief, as maybe a second act, right? And I was so inspired by these people. And my Improv 1 class at Second City, we all still keep in touch. And this is now almost 3 years ago.
Wow.
Because there were so many of us in the thick of the pandemic being like, oh, hi, person from Georgia, like people from all over the world who were wanting to do something like this. And I just got bit by the bug, did all the courses I possibly could get my grubby little paws on at Second City, and then explored around and found an improv troupe in the small community that I used to live in. I now am in Toronto. And they were looking for more female identifying performers. And I joined them, and it was so much fun. And I still, try and perform with them as much as I can. During one of the Second City classes, there was a showcase and an agent was there. And the agent saw me perform, reached out to me, signed me. And that's how the acting career got started. So that was really fun. And started auditioning and got into the old acting union. And I've been enjoying that. That was kind of the nexus for the podcast that I have as well, too, Second Act Actors, because I was meeting all these people in these improv classes, in my acting classes, at these auditions who didn't come from a traditional theater school background. They came from whatever career before and had some type of pivot, right? And said, I want to try something else, whether it's simultaneously along with my other job or complete switch into acting, creativity, whatever, a more career of whimsy per se. And hence that my podcast was born, where I interview others like myself who are either simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting or fully switched into a career in acting.
We'll put your podcast in our show notes so people can find it.
Oh, thank you.
I just find through this podcast, I'm finding some common threads of people in healthcare who are also into comedy. Like there's just certain things about us that I'm like, it's like a Venn diagram, and that's probably my favorite thing about this podcast. But for the Second Act podcast, is there common threads that you're finding with these people who are like, they were a lawyer and now they're acting, or they were a veterinarian and now they're acting, or what? Is there something that you see in common with that kind of group of people?
Yeah, I think the biggest thread that I see is when they were younger, they were performers. And I don't mean they were child actors. Some of them were, sure. But they were, like myself, performers. They were the obnoxious kid in class. They loved to play pretend. They loved to dress up. They were the lead in all the church pageants, me. Or they just loved to speak out and express themselves and dance and do whatever. And were highly encouraged to do so because that's what happens when you're a kid. They say, yeah, take dance, take theater, do all these fun things until you hit, for me, it was grade 11-ish when it said, okay, now that's nice. You're really good at that. Cute. But now you need to find the practical career to make you money. For good reason, right? We live in a capitalist society. You have to. But for me, it was never even proposed as an option from either my parents, who I love. They are performers, they are artists, they are wonderful human beings. But it was never proposed to say, maybe you should do a career in this acting, musical theater thing, comedy stuff that you love and are good at. No, it was find something else and do that, do it really well, which we all, because we were so gifted as theater kids when we were young, we were going to do this really well. But then the problem is when you kind of get that, and I swear to goodness, the 7-year itch comes from somewhere, that 7-year itch in our careers when you go, okay, I'm done now. I've done the thing. I've graduated. Now what? Where do I go next? Oh, and then there's this, I don't know, that child that's missing, that inner child, which I know is very woo, but there's always that common thread of, oh, I remember being a kid and I just loved it. And I wanted to find that again because it was missing. And I was starting to hate my job, which I genuinely loved to do. And now I hate it. Why? Oh, I think it's because I'm missing creativity, whimsy, fun, art. My inner child wants to play again. And I've been told you can't do that because you need to be practical. And I was. We all were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm feeling every word.
No. Yes.
I'm sure. It's definitely some in the comedy world, improv world, acting world. It's a lot of similarities of people who sort of stopped and were like, hey, why can't I do that fun thing anymore? Have you found people like yourself during the pandemic that were like, nope, I don't want to be a lawyer. I'm going to, or like, is there more people from your podcast that made that pivot during the pandemic, or is it just kind of all over the place?
I'd say, of course, now I'm like itching to just actually tell you the percentages because I like stats so much.
Yeah,
but
nerd.
Makes my brain tingle.
I need a chart.
I love charts. I love lists. I love color coding. It organizes the brain. My gut says yes, there are more people in the pandemic who have made the switch. But honestly, I think that's more me saying, yay, one of us. But join us. Join me on my crusade. But, there are quite a number of people who I've talked to who made the decision prior to the pandemic. And then it's interesting to talk to them what happened to their kind of worldview during the pandemic when they were already in a career, a creative career, trying to do that. And then the pandemic said, now you're extremely unessential.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty harsh.
Which it's crazy to me. And I mean, I know obviously our health is the most important thing. But I think what will always be essential are the storytellers. And that is in every shape of the word, right? Comedians, streaming content, chatting around a campfire. That's how we spread our legacy. That's how we transmit history. That's also how we teach science to people, right? That's how we do our progress, make scientific progress, is being storytellers. And I think what was really difficult for a lot of people during the pandemic was the idea that was now no. And I think it took a long time for the world to kind of come around to be like, oh, right, we need community and collective chatting and stuff like that. Obviously, when it was safe to do so, of course. But I think that was a big kind of rock to a lot of people in the creative industries kind of core.
Yeah, we don't need you anymore. Just stay home.
Yeah.
Stay home.
Which, you know what? Yes, as a doctor,
yes.
Thank you for doing so. But I think there was a huge recognition of what priorities are. And, sometimes I kind of, this is going to sound terrible. Sometimes I kind of miss those days where a lot of us, we were just kind of at home with our people doing very simple things like building communities online and being with our own little bubbles and stuff like that. But I think also the priority shift was at that time recognizing how important it is to have community. And then as we came out of the pandemic, everyone went, community, nope. Consuming again, I think it was good and I was excited and optimistic. And I think we're kind of back to where we were.
Yeah, I feel like that too. People just want to go back to normal. Like whatever that was, we just need to go back to normal. And I'm like, but was normal? Was it good?
Was it good? Did you like it? This fast rushed pace? It's not great.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about your acting because you really, as someone who dabbles in the acting, you kind of fast tracked because, which is amazing because you were like, oh, I did some improv and then an agent approached me.
Yeah.
Which is incredible. So congratulations for that. But then you have done some film work, some television work, and some voice work.
Yes.
So I would love to hear about that because I think that's really exciting.
Yeah. No, it's been so much fun. I've done, commercials as well, too. I never thought about doing film and TV when I was growing up. I did theater growing up and I still do theater. I love theater. But I think, I really do enjoy the film and television. Because when I look back at it and I was trying to think about why do I like this so much? I love the making of a thing, the learning of the making of the thing. If I could watch just behind the scenes footage of everything, I would be happy on a desert island for the rest of my life. The acting is wonderful. It's vulnerable. It's soul searching. It's getting nitty gritty. It makes me feel so good. But I also love just watching everyone else build this and do the thing, which, especially in film and TV, there's a pride in the craft of what people do, which makes me really excited. And again, this is the behind the scenes stuff where, for example, I had the wonderful experience of being a medical consultant on Star Trek. I am not a Trekkie, but the detail that, for example, the costume designers put into these costumes, little teeny little things that are so that nobody would notice. No one would notice, but they know. And they are proud of that because they're like, yes. And so it's going full on with effort, I think, is a big thing. And set designers putting little cross hatches in the stonework because that's what would have happened in this era. And nobody would tell. Nobody could see that, but they would know, right? The craftsman knows that they didn't put a full effort in if they didn't do that because this is about their craft. I think as an actor, that's exciting to be a part of. It makes you want to do that. The director wants to do that. It's a whole group of individuals at the top of their game wanting to be at the top of their game. And I love being there as the actor who is like the smallest, minuscule part of this universe who literally is inconsequential, watching all these people build the thing. And I know I'm kind of going on a bit of a tangent here, but that to me is the absolute joy of film and television. And to be honest, voiceover and the motion capture work I've done as well too. There's just so many more people involved in this thing than I ever thought. And that makes me so excited because it's like, I love learning and I will never, ever be able to learn everything that goes in a film and television production. Good. That's exciting to me. I love acting, but I love everything else.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. The whole thing. No, it's because it's an appreciation for the craft. I'm glad you're a medical consultant because I want to be one too, because when I watch a show and it's medically incorrect, I can't stand it. Yeah, I couldn't watch Grey's Anatomy like when it first came out because they had someone tying someone in incorrectly. Isn't that ridiculous? I know it was a good show. I was like, I can't watch it. And I think they had medical consultants.
They did. And I think the biggest thing that I learned, so I had a really cool job during the pandemic. I was the surgical hand double for a TV show that was on one season called Good Sam. So it was about heart surgeons. And so anytime they would zoom in on a character's hands, they were usually mine or my male identifying other doctor. He did the boy's hands, I did the girl's hands, and it was my hands. And they would say, okay, Dr. McMordie, come on in and do what you would normally do. And I'd do what I'd normally do with like their corn syrup dyed blood. So it's like sticking to your gloves really hard. And of course, all they give you is like a gigantic suture. And they're like, can you just tie it? I'm like, a simple interrupted in the heart. Sure.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. With big suture.
With big, huge suture. Sure. Whatever. And so I do it. And the director would go, that doesn't look good. Like, but this is the correct. They're like, it doesn't look good. Okay. What if I do like completely wrong? He's like, ooh, that looks good. Can you like flourish your hand a little? I'm like, that's incorrect. He's like, I don't care. It's the same reason why I was teaching the actors how to scrub properly. And I'm sure you've probably seen in any movie where they're scrubbing, they're usually having big, intense conversations about how dare you tell my father that, right? And they don't have their masks on.
Yes.
Every doctor, every medical professional is like, grr! But that doesn't look good on screen. So they don't care. So the medical consultant is there stomping their feet. And I had to contend with, on Star Trek, not just me, but there was a scientist, like a PhD in astrophysics, because they wanted the space right.
Amazing.
And then a Star Trek consultant who knows the Star Trek universe, right? So it's like the three musketeers screeching at each other, being like, this is medically incorrect, but the space is correct. But in Star Trek world, they would do this. Until finally the director was just like, go away.
I'm doing what I want.
You nerds. We had a great time. That's like my dream, is to just be there with a bunch of nerdy people. And the director goes, I'm doing what I want because it doesn't look good on camera.
All right. Well, it still
Fair.
sounds like an extremely fun time.
It was. It really was.
Yeah. You made a comment. You made two comments that I want to dig into. And I think this one is from your website. You said medicine makes you a better actor and acting makes you a better doctor. And I think that about my comedy as far as being a better veterinarian. But so I know what that means to me, and I totally can understand that statement. But can you just explain what that means to you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I noticed as a scientist, I will always have curiosity. But I think what can happen sometimes in, again, a public-facing medical career is we get our defenses up. And because we're being confronted with so many things telling us no, or like either the government, insurance companies, our medical office, the hospital, our patients even are very confrontational, because not many times are people coming to us in the best mood saying, I'm so happy to see you. Let's chat. I love life. They're coming with the flip opposite. And a lot of times we don't have a miracle answer that they're looking for. So I know early in my career, I would notice I would be getting like my defensive haunches up when people would confront me, as opposed to when confrontation occurs as a scientist, that is the time to be curious as opposed to defensive. Because curiosity is how, like, what? Ooh, tell me more, right? It's that the yes and of improv, right? So I was noticing that acting was keeping me so beyond, like, just curious all the time. I was always in this beginner mindset that I had gotten rid of in medicine, because I felt like I knew I was now the expert. I was now a specialist, that I was getting referrals for my expert opinion. I also am a female in a male-dominated field of medicine, so I felt like I needed to be like, I am the expert. Don't you dare say no. And I thought curiosity and a beginner mindset would come off as weakness, which the patients and the healthcare system would sense and take advantage of. Which is true, sadly, sometimes, but I was realizing it usually wasn't true. The acting curiosity and beginner mindset really helped me remember the scientific curiosity. That is why I went into medicine in the first place. Science needs defenses to come down, because no progress happens unless you're curious. If you are just defensive and keeping your own little box, you're never going to learn anything new. Learning new things is vulnerable. Admitting that you don't know everything is vulnerable and scary. But in the end, I was noticing not only were my patients more comfortable with me and responsive, and it was more of a therapeutic alliance, I also noticed that bled into the acting as well, too, because if I looked at it, not so much that everything in acting is a science experiment, but looking again at, just keeping, I think, the curiosity as high as possible. Yeah, that's the big thing, that curiosity, keeping it defenses down, curiosity up.
I think it's a good life philosophy.
Yeah.
Also,
I agree.
Right? Just to be like, why are you yelling at me?
Yeah, exactly.
Curious.
It's so much nicer, personally, to not be angry.
Oh, yeah.
It's so much nicer. My days are better. I don't hate medicine as much. I was starting to really hate it because I was just mad. But I agree with you when you kind of come out, why are you yelling at me? Because most of the time, they're not yelling at me, Janet. You don't even know me.
Right.
They're yelling at some awful systemic issue, and they're scared. I won't divulge, obviously, any patient information, but I'll never forget this person who came into my office just so mad. Like, mad from the get-go. Like, I don't know why you're mad. Like, you got in to see a specialist in a couple weeks. You didn't have to wait in the waiting room. There's literally nothing to be mad about. They were telling me their story, and frustrating experience. And I remember looking at them. They were intimidating, really scary kind of looking. And I just said to them, I am so sorry that happened to you. That sounds awful. And they burst into tears.
Wow.
I will never forget that. I will never forget that. It was so powerful. And I'm not saying it's because I'm the first doctor to listen to them. No. It's just, there was that curiosity. Of course, my haunches started going up like an angry cat. Why? This is a waste of your energy. Just relax. Come on. What a response. It was light years better. It made their day better. It made my day better. It made my clinic go by faster, right? Everything is better. Everything is worse when I get defensive and yell back at the person. I will never forget that.
Yeah. I was just thinking how differently that could have gone.
Oh,
like in a second, it just, you're in the off mood or like, cause I have those experiences too. And you're just kind of like, yeah, I'm not putting up with this crap, and I think sometimes as a woman doctor too, or a veterinarian, you kind of are like, no, I'm not dealing with this. And I'm going to fire you. But just that second where it's a great lesson. You kind of stop yourself and say, oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. And I think it's hard because there is that line that needs to be drawn. There's that line between I'm going to roll over and say, you win, yelling, screaming person, versus I'm here with you, yelling, screaming person. And I think that only comes with, and this sounds very pretentious, with time in the medical practice, like time in our practices, having, being with more and more and more humans, patients, animals, whoever. When I first started medicine, I was reactive. But just as time goes on, I don't know, maybe get older and get more tired. But I don't know. I can tell a lot quicker who I need to shut down their toxic masculinity or who I need to be a bit more open and curious. I find it easier to figure that out. And that's experience, I think.
No one tells me I look young anymore.
I always say the day, because I get it all the time. You look too young to be a doctor. And I'm like, thank you. I didn't spend any time in the sun when I was in my 20s because I lived in the library. But the day they stopped telling me that, I'm like, what? Excuse me.
Yeah, it hurts. I'll just tell you. People are like, you look very experienced, Dr. Boston. I'm like, thank you. I guess okay. Good.
It's so funny. I remember being in medical training and I have a great friend of mine. Her name is Josephine, and she is probably are we allowed to swear on this?
Oh yeah, it's encouraged.
Okay. It's encouraged. Yeah. She's probably one of the most badass doctors that I know. And she looks like a Disney princess.
Amazing.
And she's tiny. She's got a very beautiful sing-songy voice. But she's the most badass doctor I know. And I remember her and I having this conversation. We were in our medical training about how much we wished we were old British men, because then everyone would take us seriously. People have dyed their hair gray to be taken more seriously in the practice of medicine because, comes with great wiseness and maturity, right? But, it's funny, and this is just a bit of a tangent. I definitely, speaking of my voiceover career, had made very concerted efforts to masculinize my voice in my male-dominated sports medicine career. And, to get rid of my ums and likes and Canadianisms of upspeak. My name is Dr. McMordie, ? And vocal fry and dropping my lower register so much that one of my closest friends who had never seen me do the doctor voice, had a phone call from the hospital and she was there and she's known me for a long time. I answered the phone and I flipped into Dr. McMordie mode and she fell off her chair. Like, it was just such a shock to her, the difference that my voice does in professional doctor mode. But it's that concerted effort to be, I am a voice of authority. I know what I'm doing. This is the voice of God.
It's important though, because I notice that on the radio or when I go to conferences that women will upspeak.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard like amazing women, like PhDs, like they're the authority on something. I remember like CBC, some woman physicist, and she was upspeaking and I was like, no.
It's changing though. It's changing. So
okay,
it's interesting if you listen to commercials now. And again, my friend who I was alluding to is a very, her full-time job is a professional voiceover artist. And if you listen to, especially commercials now, they don't want you to get rid of your upspeak or what's called vocal fry, which is Kardashianisms. Like, hey, right? I want to sell you makeup. So that's called vocal fry. And they don't want you to get rid of that now because the consumer is now younger millennials and Gen Z who want to hear advertisements that sound like them. And that is them. They don't want to hear an old white dude tell them they need to buy McDonald's. They want to hear someone cool. You want a Diet Coke? You know, like, and fries. And there's going to be a hamburger Happy Meal. Right? Yeah, fries and vocal fry. So, which is so interesting. And again, that's just culture, right? Consumer culture.
Yeah.
Who is buying things these days? Who has the money? It's millennials and Gen Z right now, right? So, for some things, for the big things, right? Yeah, it's interesting.
God.
Super fascinating.
I need vocal fry to go away. I need less vocal fry in the world. No one cares what I think, but I need less. Not more, Janet. I need less vocal fry.
Less vocal fry.
There's a lot of comedians do vocal fry too.
Interesting.
Like, stop. Yeah.
Stop
For some reason that drives me crazy. Okay. Speaking of crazy, do you want to do a fun improv game now?
I would love to.
Okay. I am leaning on you.
Okay.
To pick the game.
Okay. And I hope that's not too long. I thought we could do the alphabet game. Do you know the alphabet game?
Yep.
We start with a letter of the alphabet and say we'll start with the letter S because your first name starts with the letter S. We'll think of a topic and then we'll tell a story sentence by sentence, alternating back and forth. And it has to be in alphabetical order. So if we start with the letter S and you say a sentence starting with letter S, I'll continue the story starting with letter T. And then U, V, W, blah, 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 all the way back to S. Or until we get tired and you say stop.
Okay.
Because we make the rules because you make the rules as your podcast.
Well, it's improv. We can do whatever we want.
We can do whatever we want. Let's do a story about surgery.
Yeah.
Surgery? Question mark, upspeak. Let's talk about surgery. Surgery is our topic that we got from the audience. You can start with the letter S.
So I was in surgery yesterday for 4 hours.
That sounds crazy. I can't believe it.
Unbelievably, it is true. Because I had 6 surgeries to do, and they were all cases that came from Aurelia.
Very interesting. I used to live in Aurelia.
Why did so many people from Aurelia need surgery on the same day? I'll never know.
Xylophones are complicated things to remove from the body.
You know, they all said that they fell on it.
That's a very ridiculous thing to hear all the time.
Absolutely. Period.
But I think 6 surgeries in one day is too many.
Can you tell me how many surgeries you think you should do in one day?
Don't worry. I won't say any more than 4.
Everywhere I go, it's different.
Fascinating. Even up north.
Gets really tiring.
Have you ever thought about hiring an assistant?
I would love an assistant.
Janet volunteers.
Know what? That's an amazing idea.
Let's open a boutique veterinary sports practice together.
Magnificent plan. Veterinary surgical oncology, human sports medicine. What could go wrong?
Never been done before.
Obviously.
Perhaps we might need medical legal advice.
Quite true. We don't know what we're doing.
Rest assured, folks, we will get medical advice before we open.
Specifically on licensing requirements.
Yay! So fun.
So fun. You got X and Z. That's very unfair.
You know what's so funny? Whenever, like, obviously whoever gets X will also get Z. And then the best thing about improv in my mind is people love when you fail. They love when you when you break, right? And kind of go, or oh God, or do something like exactly that's like people love that. And I think my perfectionistic tendencies I have to remind myself that like half the fun of improv is sweating, and people and the audience loves to watch you sweat.
Yeah. That was the other thing you said to me. Maybe this is what you mean. You said, oh, improv and medicine, they're opposite. Is that what you mean? Or what do you mean by that?
I don't know. There are a ton of similarities that now I discover as I do more improv and also as I do more medicine, right? But when I first started, I was terrified because improv has no preparation. And so there's no preparation, I thought. There are rules that you follow, and there's also what we call like the hoop in a lot of the short form games. That's kind of the way to make it a bit funnier, but you kind of can learn the strategy for different games. But, you know, you show up completely unprepared. Whatever gets thrown at you, and you go. Where in medicine, you can't show up unprepared. You have to follow the algorithm or people die. So, and I like that control. I like that, you know, when I'm in an emergency situation in medicine, my brain, I go tunnel vision focused, and that's when I'm at my best. Where in improv, it was like, no, you need to be the opposite. Because if you're like that, you aren't listening, you aren't reacting, and you just aren't open to the world. And so that is where I was noticing the difference between medicine and improv. But then again, as I do more of each, I think they benefit each other. You know, medicine should be a little bit less rigorous. I mean, never to the point of patient safety, but I think we should be more open to listening and, you know, yes-anding people and not being, again, defensive, more curious. And I think improv also, when you work together with a group and you practice and you learn the rules and you abide by some of the main rules of improv and you learn some of the hoops and the strategies, it's way more fun. And yeah, so I think they're so different, but so they can be so complementary.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know what I find when I'm doing them both on the same day, it kind of hurts my brain. I don't know if you feel like that. I'm like, oh, I'm going to break. Yeah, because it's so different, but I love them both. But do you feel like that?
Yeah. And, you know, I was thinking about, you know, I had an improv show, one of the professional improv shows I do, and I'd had a full clinic day before. I really had to, I like couldn't be around anyone to prep myself because I needed to do almost a like, have you tried turning it off and on again button for myself? Like, okay, you need to shift into improv mode now. And I couldn't be around people for a little while. And then as soon as I was in, I was like, okay, now I'm dropped in. And I think, again, that comes with, I think, experience in improv when you're not, like, I still get a bit nervous when an improv show starts up, but not as much as I did before because I'm just so much more, and also comfortable with the people that I perform improv with, right? There's that trust that's there. Same with surgery, right?
Yeah.
You know, you're not as nervous. You trust the people around you. You trust these and you trust this. And that's pretty awesome. It's an incredible feeling.
She's pointing at her hand.
My hands. Oh, yes, of course. That's terrible.
That's okay.
My hands
no, it's fine.
and my brain.
just to clarify.
The two money makers.
Things surgeons need in order to function.
Eyes, head, hands. Probably in the order of, and a team. Oh my God. And a team.
Yes.
Oh,
yes. Super important. Okay. So this is a question I ask everyone. A couple of questions I ask everyone on co-medicine. Your career as an actor it's going well.
Thank you.
I think from my perspective, it looks like it's going very well.
I love it.
Would you give up medicine if you could make the same amount of money? So we don't have to worry about the money. If you could work full time as an actor, would you give it up? Or do you kind of like that you're really planted in both worlds right now? Do you kind of like to keep going with what you're doing?
I think my answer changes day to day. Today is a day that I am saying I would quit medicine 100%. I am coming off of a 30-hour shift. I'm like, I hate this. But when I'm in the thick of things in surgery, when I'm with my team, when I'm with my people, I'm like, I can do this. I can simultaneously do this all the time. Or when acting is so frustrating, which is all the time, I say, screw this. Why am I doing this? I can be just a doctor. But it changes day to day. I'd love to just do the acting thing. But I do truly think I would miss the scientific curiosity that comes with medicine.
Yeah, I like that your answer, you said it changes, because I've been asked that and now it's recorded what I said. And I'm like, honestly, I think that's a more honest answer. That's a better answer than the answers I've given because it's true. Because sometimes like doing comedy and acting is very frustrating also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's hard to give up. Hard to give up the medicine. We're going to put some information about you in the show notes, and we'll put your podcast. But is there anything else? Like we'll put your Instagram if that's okay, and we'll put your website.
Thank you. Yeah.
And your podcast. But is there anything else that you would like us to promote, or other ways people can find you, or is that kind of the best way to find you?
The best way to find me is probably on Instagram. That's where I kind of live. I don't really know any of the other things. I'm an elder millennial. Sorry, TikTok. But yeah, I guess promoting my podcast, which I absolutely love. It is celebrating people who changed careers into acting in the entertainment industry later on in life, and also interviewing people who have supported us during that. It's such an honor, as being a podcaster as well, to chat with people, to share their stories. And I'm coming up on 100 episodes.
Oh, congrats. Amazing.
Thank you. Yeah. So it's been 100 incredible human beings who have been willing to share their stories with me, which has been, again, a huge privilege, huge honor. And I would love if you're interested to check it out, because I love doing it. And I hope you love it as well, too.
All right. Yes. Everyone, check it out. If you like this podcast, you will like that podcast. Okay. This is the last question. It's very serious. It's very important. Because one of the goals of co-medicine is to get Dr. Jeong.
Yes. He is also my goal. He's the ultimate second act actor.
He's also the ultimate co-medicine.
Yes, he is. Okay, between two brains, we can do this, Sarah.
We gotta get him on our podcast. So you're not actually talking to anyone now, except for you're talking directly to Ken. You can do a co-invite to both if you want. That's fine. But please, can you talk to Ken directly and invite him to come on co-medicine/second act if you want? What would you say to him?
I would say, hello, Ken. I would love if you would join Dr. Boston and Dr. McMordie for our podcasts. We think your life story is absolutely incredible, and we would love to share it with the world through the lens of your medical career, because I think not many other podcasts that you've been on have really focused on that part. And I don't think many others can literally empathize with your life story. And that is us. And we think you're great.
All right, Ken. That was a great invitation. Well, we'll do it together or we'll do it separately. Whatever you want, Ken.
Whatever you want.
We're flexible. We're improv performers. Yeah. Yeah. Well, yes, and you, Ken. If you just would answer us. Janet, thank you so much for being on this podcast. I loved meeting you. I hope I get to meet you in person soon.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
I can't wait to see what you do next, because you're amazing.
Thank you so much for having me on. This was such a joy.
And that wraps up another episode of Co-Medicine. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to give a shout out to Mark Edwards, who wrote the music for this podcast. He is a very funny comedian, also a musician who writes music that makes me laugh. I don't know. Is that a thing? I don't know. He can do that. Also want to shout out to Heather McPherson of Twisted Spur Media, who's our producer and editor, who makes everything work. I could not do this podcast without her. And I want to thank you for listening and for sticking with us in season 2. If you're new to Co-Medicine, welcome. If you've been listening since the beginning, welcome back. It's great to have you here. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share and like and give us a review. If you didn't like it, I don't know what you're still doing here. If you didn't like this podcast, you could do nothing. Nothing would be good.